they have to be intentional about the change that they're after.
The more opportunity you have to move towards a response that is aligned with your goals and your values.
Yes, I love that so much.
The more we can create opportunities.
It's so true. So true. Welcome back to the I Can Fit That In podcast. I am excited to have you here with my guest today, Ryan Munsey. Ryan is a high performance coach, best-selling author of Fuck Your Feelings, and a keynote speaker. He is also the host of the Move the Chains podcast, where he talks all about the mindset it takes to achieve personal and professional goals. Ryan personally coaches Olympic and professional athletes, special forces operators, Hollywood celebrities, and leading entrepreneurs and C-level executives, while also speaking and hosting leadership workshops around the world. Let's dive in. I can't wait to share this guest with you today. Ryan, thank you for being here.
Erin, so good to be here with you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. You have a really interesting background and a mindset that is extremely similar to my own. But of course, we are very different people coming from very different places, doing different things. So I would love to just start off with, what is a brief snapshot of your personal and professional journey? And what do you really want people to know about who you are? Who is Ryan Munsey?
Well, I guess if someone were to meet me in person, I find myself telling people like, I'm just a normal dude. I grew up playing sports, wasn't good enough to play at the college level. I went to school for academics, and when I got to school, I sort of filled that competitive void with lifting weights. I got into bodybuilding and fitness. Ended up majoring in food science and human nutrition. So that is it's a dietetics track. If I had done the internship after school, I would be an RD, but I did not agree with what we were taught in school about how to eat. We could do an entire podcast on
the backwards food chain from back then.
big food, big pharma, the food pyramid, all that stuff. And so I chose not to pursue the clinical route. And another reason for that decision was I was really fortunate even then to realize that I wanted to work with people who wanted to work with me. And I bring that up because I know you do a lot about, you teach a lot about intentionality. And part of, I think, my journey was knowing who I did and did not want to work with. And even then I knew that changing people's behaviors was a challenge. Even when they come to me and say, hey, I want help, when they raise their hand, I want help with this thing, it's still a challenge. And so I knew that if I went down the clinical route, and just personally, I did not want to be in what I would consider a sterile environment. I didn't want to be in a hospital. Started working in a big box gym and did that for a few years and said, hey, I think I can do this better on my own, and started my own gym, did that for 4 years. Wrote for a lot of the leading fitness magazines, the ones that most people could think of when you try to name a few magazines. And the longer I did that, the more my passion shifted from the X's and O's of planning diets or planning training programs, and got more into, as I alluded to a minute ago, why are people struggling to follow these plans? So on one hand, I get to talk to lab coats and researchers and read scientific studies and find out what behavioral psychologists call choice architecture and all these things. And then on the other side, I'm talking to professional athletes and special forces operators and CEOs and leaders of all kinds, and finding out what they're doing, talking to them and saying, hey, did you know this thing you do has a name? It's this. And so the marriage of theory and application, and being able to present that to interested parties who want to optimize mental and physical performance and get the results that they want in all aspects of their life, business, fitness, family, finance, whatever all of those pillars are for each individual. So.
Right.
Hopefully that's not too long of an answer.
No, it's not. It's so good. Thanks for walking us through all that. There's so much there to unpack. One of the things that's really resonating with me and coming up for me and listening to you is that you talked a little bit in the beginning about sort of attracting the people that you want to work with, right? And in my eyes, when I consider that in my own business, it's a lot around the energetic alignment, right? Because if it's something that's going to drain me because someone might say they want change, but they're not willing to apply what they're learning, then that is just an uphill battle. And we don't need to be people, these aren't kindergartners that we're working with. We don't need to be people who are trying to hold someone's hand every step of the way and make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing. They have to be intentional about the change that they're after. And I know from my own experience with my own transformation, until I actually looked in the mirror and decided, you know what, today's the day I'm going to start taking responsibility for how I treat myself, how I treat others, and I'm going to show up better because I'm going to focus on being a little better each day. We are only competing against the self from yesterday. That's it. And the moment I realized that and said, okay, what is it that I want out of myself so that I can be a better leader, a better mother, a better partner to my husband? That was game changing, because that set in my mindset the need and the desire for change. And then what am I going to do to get there? So I started reading books, I started taking courses, I started going to retreats. All of these things I was learning and practicing became a way of being, but I had to replace a lot of bad habits along with that, right? Bad habits I built, the 5:30 glass of wine at night. I knew that wasn't right for me. I knew that wasn't healthy. I knew I didn't really want it, but I thought I needed to take the edge off, right? Netflix 5 nights a week. I didn't really need that. I didn't need to mind numb 5 nights a week, maybe one, sometimes maybe two, but I don't need that every single night. So what is it that when you know that someone is energetically in alignment with who you want to serve, what is the first thing that you do with them? Like, what is the very first thing you're talking to them about, whether it's their goals or just their current mindset, that helps them get into, like, what is the pivotal shift in that beginning time frame? You working together, you saying, okay, all right, John, let me understand you a little bit better. Okay, now that I understand you, here's where we're going to start. Is there one thing that you're wanting them to focus on initially?
Every client is a little bit different. Some people come to me specifically for the fitness or the nutrition side of things. Some people, it's specifically help with the next big step in their business. But no matter why they come, we always start with two things. One is going to be defining their values. And from there, you kind of get to priorities, right? And then we make sure that their calendar reflects their priorities and their goals. And it's interesting. Sometimes I joke, I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I feel like it's like, I can't believe that very successful people pay me to tell them how to run their schedule. But I think the mistake that a lot of individuals make is allowing their calendar to dictate their priorities. What we should be doing is using our values and our priorities to dictate our calendar.
Yes. Oh my
To
gosh.
plan, to schedule our calendar. And I know, again, a lot of what you do is like, how do we live intentionally? Well, I don't think you could do anything more intentional or live more intentionally than by being militant or very vigilant over how you spend your time. I'm not telling anybody what's important or what they should be doing. I'm just asking them. They're telling me, and I say, okay, well, if these are the things you want to achieve, these are the things that are important to you, let's make sure that that's the first thing that goes on your calendar. We're blocking time off to do that. So many people are just, hey, I don't have time. I can't fit this in. I can't do this.
So true. And it's the time thing. You're so right, because people aren't prioritizing, first of all, their own needs, right? Which I know you see this a lot in your clients. I see it a lot in mine. when people don't prioritize their own needs and they expect usually it's their partner, right? Because that's who knows you the best and gets the brunt of you not prioritizing yourself. But, and I did this myself, I held resentment towards my husband for years for not knowing my needs. And yet I couldn't even realize what they were to communicate them. But there is no one to blame but yourself if you're not finding the time. And when I say find, what I really mean is creating the time and space, because every human being gets 24 hours a day. No one is more special than the next. No one gets more. It doesn't matter how famous you are, how much money you have, you get 24 hours a day. How you choose to intentionally use it is up to you. Yes, there's responsibilities. Yes, there's obligations. That's a given. Again, every adult has those, right? You're no one person is more special than the next. So within your waking hours, let's say it's 16 hours a day, where are you moving moment by moment, intentionally giving of yourself with also not depleting yourself? So recognizing when you need to refill the tank. I feel like you were just a walking advertisement for the podcast and for my book. So my book is called I Can Fit That In. And then the subtitle is How Rituals, Not Routines, Transform Your Life. And what I mean by that is routines are autopilot. They're the things that people do just to check the box, to feel some sort of very brief dopamine hit or sense of accomplishment in their day. And they're usually the things that they're just doing on autopilot. They're not super intentional. It's more so like, oh yeah, I just have to do that because it's just what I do. Even something like commuting to the train, people are doing that on autopilot rather than, okay, I'm going to actually like smell the roses. I'm going to watch the birds when I walk to the train, like being very mindful when they're in that moment, very present. A lot of fitting in whatever that is going to help fuel you and or ritualize your life in a way where you're connecting more with nature or more with a friend or more with your family. However you choose to do that, it's about removing the stuff that no longer serves you. Because we all know we can't just keep cramming things in and expect that we're going to arrive at some sort of happiness or fulfillment. So it's getting intentional about what are you prioritizing? What are you taking out, right? What would you say for you are those things, those non-negotiables, those rituals that you have to have in your life, and you will not betray yourself or you won't let anyone else betray you. You always will make sure you fit them in.
Great coffee and a crossword puzzle.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
It's
My
funny.
language.
Even when I had my gym, the folks that were my age and older always used to joke with me, and they would say, like, "You are the youngest old man that we've ever met." And I definitely live like an old man, if you want to say that. But coffee, crossword puzzles, good music, and I'm doing that because I know that doing that enables me to show up later in the day in the way that I want to, the way that I need to, the way I'm being paid or have an expectation to show up as that
Right.
version. Save that mental energy for the high value things.
Mm-hmm.
As you're saying, it can also put us into this kind of sleepwalking mode. And so
Yeah.
if we're trying to be more mindful in everyday situations, one of the best lessons I ever heard on mindfulness, simple exercise that anybody can do. You just close your eyes, take a couple of breaths, open your eyes, and make a little mental list. Name 3 things that you can see, 3 things that you can hear, and 3 things that you can feel. And then you just repeat that. 3 more things that you can see, 3 more things you can hear, 3 more things you can feel. And even if you're doing this right now, maybe you feel the chair that you're sitting on. You didn't realize that you felt that. You feel your shirt on your shoulders or something. You feel whatever is in your hand. You have this sensory input coming all the time that we don't pay attention to because we simply can't manage consciously all of those incoming signals. Our brain is really good at filtering out what we don't necessarily need in any given moment. And so when we can train ourselves to be mindful and focused like that, it's a great exercise. And this is one of the beauties of meditation too, is the more you do this, the more you train it and practice it, the better you get at doing it. And the real value doesn't come in the moment of doing it, but it comes from after. Just like going to the gym. You don't get stronger during the workout, you get stronger, you're stronger later because of the workout that you've done in the past. And so the more of these practices and more reps you get with meditation or mindfulness, the more you're able to call on that and quiet your mind when you need to, when you are faced with adversity or chaos, or something comes up that creates an emotional response.
It's so true. And I know, and a lot of the leaders and executives I work with, in particular in a cohort that I run, I have them meditating every day for just 5 minutes. And most of these people are these, high performing, high achieving type A people, just like myself. I'm like that corporate background. It was always that person. When I tell them how much meditation is not just about physiological effects, that it's actually about building a deeper relationship with their heart and with their intuition, their ears perk up, because that sounds really exciting for them. But then when they actually have to go and do the practice of meditating and sit there in silence, it's like, I can't do this, because they've never, ever really spent time alone with just their mind. They're filling every second of every day with hyper productivity. So, I mean, the number of people I know who are just like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to be here and there. And you don't have to plan a 10-year-old's birthday party. You could actually just take your son to dinner and buy him a couple more gifts this year. Like, that's okay. Like, you don't have to do it, but you choose to make yourself so busy and do all of these things, right? And there's no sustainability in that. So when you are thinking about sustainable ways of being with your clients, and you're really helping them shift their behavior and shift their mindset so that what it is has lasting impact, that they're not going to revert into the old ways of being. They're not going to pick up the old bad habits. What are some of the things you focus on with your clients in that regard?
The phrase that you used is spot on. It's a sustainable pace, right? And again, this demographic that is a high achiever and a high performer and type A and go, go, go and do it all. There's a tendency to think about how much can I cram into a day, in a week, in a month.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem or the mistake that most people make, especially high achievers,
Mm-hmm.
is going for the equivalent of the highlight reel play. It's, hey, we're going to throw a Hail Mary. We're going to do the one hand catch, the toe drag on the sideline, and the fancy, the exciting, the awesome stuff. In reality, and I think you know this as well as anybody, remarkable people are the ones that do the unremarkable things with remarkable consistency.
Yeah.
And so really that's all Move the Chains is. We're going to go back to first question you asked is, where do we start? We start by identifying values, goals, priorities. And then we're going to get those goals for every area of life: finance, family, friends, faith, if that's important to you, fitness, business, whatever. And in each of those pillars or buckets, we're going to identify, like, okay, what's the 3-year trajectory? What's the 1-year goal? We're reverse engineering this and working backwards. So if that's the 1-year goal, what has to happen in 6 months to be on track for that? I'm not asking you to go 100 yards or make a highlight reel play every day. It's just, can you do one thing each day? Just show up, just touch that area of your life, move
Yeah.
it forward, and just start doing that every single day. And it equates to something similar to like a marathon pace instead of a sprint pace. Now, maybe if you went out and you ran 1 mile and that's all you had to run, you might be able to run it at 8 minutes. But if I ask you to run a marathon, you've got to run 26 miles in a row. Your 1 mile time might drop to 10, 11, 12 minutes, something a little bit slower. And so it's looking at year and half a year and quarter and month and just, okay, what is that sustainable pace? And so now we're not just saying find a sustainable pace. We're actually identifying what it looks like, and we're putting those parameters in place on your calendar, on your to-do list, your project management tool for you, not just at work. And it becomes very measurable. And just like if I'm running, I can look down at my watch and it tells me my pace. And I'm like, if I'm supposed to be running a 10-minute mile pace and it says, hey, you're at 10:30, I need to pick it up a little bit. And it becomes very easy to, again, quantify or measure that. And we know how to adjust one way or the other.
Right. I love that. And it's so true. People tend to think they have to do some major overhauls. It's got to be everything at once. It's like, okay, they got to lose 10 pounds and pick up 10 pounds of muscle and, completely rearrange their lives and take on all these personal practices and, build a better relationship with their kids. And it's like, if you're trying to do it all at once, it's just not going to work. Right. So getting very intentional about what is the one thing each day that's going to, as you say, like move the change. What's going to help you keep continuing up that field and moving forward so that, you're better off or you're winning, or you at least feel like you're winning. If it's not a real football game, at least you feel like you're winning in your own life.
Yeah.
It's so crucial. What would you say? Well, actually, I want to talk real quick about your book.
Okay.
So it has the word feelings in it, and I talk a lot about emotions. And honestly, one of the easiest ways I talk about emotions to the same kind of people that you talk to is emotions aren't scary. It's just energy and motion, and people are terrified of them. And I was too for a long time. So I get it. I tried everything in my power to numb, suppress, or project what I didn't want to feel because it was too hard to feel it. But guess what, people? Actually feeling the emotions is not the hard part. It's what we do in our minds with them that is troublesome, right? So in your book, you have things all around like chakras and obviously mindset shifts and some spirituality. And I am just curious, what do you want to tell my listeners about your book?
Well, I love in the intro that you actually said the title, because I'm always hesitant. I always ask a host, like, am I allowed to cuss? And so the title, Fuck Your Feelings, actually comes from, it's the title for a few reasons. Number one, it's kind of self-talk. Like I know that in order to get where I want to be, in order to move the chains and do the things that we've talked about so far, I'm not always going to feel like it. Right. And so it's do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, regardless of how you feel. And sometimes you just have to say, fuck your feelings, do what you're supposed to do. And neuroscience defines feelings as a mental experience of a physiological state.
Yeah.
Physiological state meaning like however your body feels from the ears down. And so right away, that's going to tell us two things. Number one, if I can change my physiology, I can change my mental status.
Yeah.
Anybody that doesn't believe that, put 30 seconds on the clock, do as many burpees as you can for 30 seconds. I promise you, in 45 seconds, you will have a different mental experience than you do right now. Mm-hmm. We can change your state. Breath work is another really, really easy way to do this. That's why it's my favorite tool for what we're talking about here, because breath work is never not available. Like you're not doing burpees if you're in the middle seat on an airplane or driving in rush hour traffic.
But I'm pretty sure we're all breathing, right?
If you're alive, you're breathing. So,
Yeah.
so you can leverage breath work to shift your autonomic nervous system from a sympathetic state, fight or flight activation, to parasympathetic. We can get our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that's responsible for logical thought, rational thought, to override that lizard brain, the limbic emotional reaction, right? And so what it amounts to is we're creating a wedge that we can use to separate stimulus from response so that we can then take a beat, take a moment. Okay, let me make the choice that's aligned with my goals and values, not this trigger that has made me emotional in some way. So yeah, I guess that might be where we start with the book.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I always tell people like, mind the gap. If you've ever been to London, and you take the tube, it's like mind the gap is in terms of what we're talking about with mental capacity and awareness. Mind the gap between what just triggered you or what just stressed you and how you choose to respond. Because if you don't choose a response, which means you've got to actually actively engage in something in between that stimulus and your reaction, because the urge to react is always going to be there. Every single time it's going to be there, because that is how the brain, like you said, the reptilian brain is biologically developed in that way. You can't do anything about that. That's the human condition, right? And again, it doesn't matter who you are. You got it. You've got the human condition. So how you choose something as simple as breath in between getting stressed, getting triggered, and then how you choose to respond. And what I tell people a lot is sometimes no response is actually the best response, and that's okay. That is 100% okay. If that feels to you like it is going to protect your energy, protect your mental sanity, like it's not going to cause you some sort of issue that you then have to get yourself out of, right? Because when we react, what happens? We hinder relationships, we feel guilty, we feel angry, like we have to get back up from all those things we just did when we yelled at someone or cut someone off on the road or who knows what, right?
Mhm.
So when you, with your book, when you are talking about something like chakras, I'm just curious, how do you talk about the chakra system? Are you talking about it from a energetic standpoint and raising your vibration, or about consciousness or spirituality as a whole? How do you address it?
So it's in the book as sort of an interesting finding. I love to look at overlap. And what I mean by that is there's a great quote, success leaves footprints, right? And so like in the fitness world, for example, you may have a lot of infighting about people who all think fitness is great, but they argue over how you should get fit, right? So you've got a strongman guy and a powerlifting guy and a CrossFit guy and a bodybuilder, and they're all yelling about which, specific way is the best. Rather than arguing about the differences, I'd rather look at the similarities and say, okay, well, they all have some form of a squat. They all have some sort of, overhead press. They all have some sort of, they leverage progressive overload, whatever, right? So you're looking for the similarities because, again, success leaves footprints. If all of these disciplines incorporate the same things, there's probably something to those things, right? So in researching for the book, I discovered a big part of the book is heart rate variability. Really, heart rate variability measures the amount of time that we spend in the parasympathetic state versus sympathetic state. Sympathetic, as I said earlier, is is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. And so a higher heart rate variability is synonymous with or leads to greater emotional resiliency. Um, and I'll refer to it as bandwidth or capacity. And this actually goes back to something in a previous answer when we were talking about mental experiences of physiological states. I said it tells us two things. I forgot to tell you the second thing. That second thing is gut-brain connection.
Yeah.
We've all heard of this, or most people have heard of this at this point, but the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, is the actual pathway by which the gut and the brain are connected. Most nerves are either afferent or efferent, meaning they take information away from or to the brain. The 10th cranial nerve, vagus nerve, is actually a two-way street. It carries information in both directions. So quite literally, it is the gut-brain connection. And again, all of those chakra points and acupressure points are along those points of innervation
Yeah.
in our major visceral organs.
Yeah. I love that you brought all this up. It's so important for people to learn about. And I know you talk about it more in your book, which they can read. You know, I studied in some neuroscience courses, um, the three brains, right?
Mhm.
That you have three brains. You have like the actual organ of a brain, which is not the same as what your mind is, by the way, but you have the organ that is the brain, and then you have the heart brain and you have the gut brain. And they do communicate back and forth all the time. And people don't realize that. They think that they're just completely separate things. And like to not understand how much your body is constantly communicating not only through and with itself but to you as the mind, the self that you are. When people start to learn little tactics and tools where they can actually understand that and be more of the observer, be more in the driver's seat of the vehicle that is the meat suit rather than the passenger,
Yep.
they will actually start to shift and want to take better care of themselves in different ways. Like that piece of information that just kind of clicks, and it's not the same for everyone. It's so one person has to read it somewhere, another person has to hear it from someone, another person needs to be a part of like some sort of spiritual experience to understand it. But as soon as people understand that what they actually are is the energy of the being, what they actually are is more than meets the eye, I think that's where it gets more real for people.
Yep.
And they realize, geez, you know what? We are just on this planet kind of catapulting through the universe. And there's a reason that we are, right? Each and every one of us. So maybe we'll take this a little bit more serious than we have in the past, and maybe do something about it to make some shifts that are going to be beneficial in our lives.
Absolutely. And there's another great line that I love. Thoughts aren't thinking.
Yeah.
Just because it pops into your head doesn't mean that it's a thought. And even if it is, it doesn't mean we have to act on it, right? You said this a minute ago. You don't always have to respond to everything. And just because a thought pops into your head doesn't mean you have to act on it. When I
Yes.
teach the difference between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex, I always use, uh, and none of this is to say that the limbic system is bad. What's bad is when we allow it to drive decisions in a way that's not aligned with our goals and our values, right? So again, prime example of the limbic system being a positive thing is if we're walking down a path in the woods and you see a snake before I do, you're going to shoot your arm out in front of me and then you're going to say, "Stop, snake." I do this in rooms all around the world, all around the country, and everybody always puts the arm out. I say, "Why do you do that? Why does the arm go out first?" People don't know. But that's because it's nonverbal.
Yeah.
It's limbic, and then the verbal comes. That's prefrontal cortex. The limbic system is always going to be faster than the prefrontal cortex. So many people get stuck in a judgment or a shame, guilt cycle for having the first thought first, right? That limbic, you're always going to think that the stuff smells good or looks good. There's that momentary temptation will always be there. It doesn't mean you have to act on it. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you for having it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the line, awareness creates choice. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is kind of what you're talking about here again is the more you learn how to, I guess, understand what I would call the human operating system, right? You become aware of this horse and rider. That's the analogy I always use. You want the rider to be in control, not the horse. And the more we become aware of this, the more we can create opportunities for better choices for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with you for having those first thoughts first. You don't have to act on them. And
Right.
mind the gap, you create a wedge. I always advise people the bigger that gap, bigger the wedge you can create, the more time that you can put between stimulus and response, the more opportunity you have to move towards a response that is aligned with your goals and your values.
Yes, I love that so much. And it's, so much of what you're talking about with emotions and reactions. It's there's a quote by Dale Carnegie that says something along the lines of, you do not creatures, we are creatures of emotion, not creatures of logic.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, especially in the corporate world, which is what the space that I play in the most, people always think logic comes first.
No,
It doesn't. Emotion comes first. And yet people are scared to learn about emotions in the corporate setting. And it's like, wait a minute. The more that you actually understand yourself, the more that you have an understanding of others and where others are coming from, the more you have a willingness to understand where others are coming from. But instead, people run from themselves and they don't want to know a lot of things about themselves. And self-awareness is the foundation to be able to create change.
the thing that's fascinating to me about this conversation is I dabble in marketing when I'm not doing this work, some of my consulting gigs. And when I had my gym, obviously I had to sell memberships and build the business. And so I'm fascinated by it's basically the other side of the same coin. And so when I'm working with individuals, I'm trying to basically help you not be marketed to. And in marketing, great marketing understands what you just said. People are not logical, they're emotional. And if you can trigger an emotional response, you can get people to take the action that you want them to take. And again, awareness creates choice. But as you're saying, if an individual learns these things, you will you will really start to see what's happening around you, how you're being, I don't want to say manipulated, but everybody is fighting for your attention. Everybody's trying to sell you something. Everybody's trying to get you to make a choice or take an action that they want you to take, whether it's a commercial on TV or a headline on a website or on social media or whatever. I mean, it's all related to stimulus and response.
It's so true. So true. I love that. I love that you just tied it into marketing. And it is, I mean, ultimately it is manipulation. You're right. It's if you don't have conviction in yourself and have a level of self-trust to where you know what you want and when you want it and what you need, I mean, then you're fair game, right? Like you're fair game for every organization, every company out there trying to sell you something.
Yep.
I mean, look at Instagram. You can't even just talk to your phone without it picking up and marketing you, 15 new products in an hour.
Yep.
So I would love to close out with what is something clearly, you have learned so much throughout your life around, neuroscience and human behavior and fitness and wellness and nutrition and all of these things that, equal holistic life. What is something that you would tell your younger self who didn't yet have that knowledge? What is something you would tell the you that is the version of you that didn't yet know the path that you would end up on?
I the best advice I've ever been given is a line that really changed my trajectory and the way that I really spent my time. If we tie this back to sort of intentionality, and I'm going to say this as my answer because I know that it was something that I did hear and listen to when I was younger. So the line is, your life is perfectly designed for the results that you are currently getting. And in the context that that was said to me, I still had my gym. I was trying to build it, and building the business wasn't going as well as I wanted it to at that particular juncture. And my mentor and coach at the time, guy who's still a great friend, Paul Reddick, said this to me. He's like, "Look, Munsey, you love football. How much football do you watch on a weekend?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know, maybe 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday." That's a lot of time that I was spending watching other people live their dreams
Yeah.
instead of making mine a reality. That piece of advice really shifted the way that I looked at how I spend my time and was a big foundational piece into a lot of what we're talking about, where I became very militant or vigilant about my calendar. And it's one of the things that sort of led to where I am now and some of the work and how I teach.
I love that. And I mean, it is so true. You have to be cautious and careful of what you consume because that is mental consumption, right? So outside of what are you eating and drinking, which does impact, every aspect of your well-being, not just your physical self. What are you mentally consuming and where are you giving away your power, giving away your energy to, like you said, to someone else's dreams? Like, even if it's just scrolling on Instagram and Facebook for an hour or 2 hours a day, you are feeding something besides yourself, right? And it always cracks me up when people say, "Oh, I just need clarity so I can take action on my dreams." No, you need to take action so that you can gain clarity on your dreams. Like that's we got to flip this around, people, right?
Yeah. Most people know what needs to be done, especially like food, take food, for example. I mean, I don't, I'm happy to answer questions about specifics and help clarify some things where there may be some confusion, but I don't think anybody really believes that Pop Tarts and McDonald's are healthy, right? I mean, if that's what you're eating for breakfast, you don't need to hire a nutritionist to get the results that you want, right? Um, yeah. So the other thing that I think is really valuable, like again, using food as sort of an analogy, if when people think that they're eating well, and then you have them do a food log,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see exactly what you're putting in your mouth, and it's really eye opening for people who have never logged their food.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's an equally valuable exercise to be done with printing out your bank statements and going back and looking at your calendar for the last 6 months. Right? You print out your bank statement for the last 6 months, you will see exactly what you spend money on. And if maybe do it, maybe you don't have to print it out, but maybe find a way to plug everything into a spreadsheet or whatever. But, when you start to see, hey, I spent $200 at Starbucks last month, or I spent whatever, but you will see what your values and your priorities are when you look at where you spend your money and where you spend your time. Look at
Yes.
your calendar, and again, maybe you're watching. If you're watching, even like you said, Erin, take 1 hour, 2 hours a day of death scrolling. It's the compound effect of that. It's not
Yeah.
the one. It's like you said with your own habits. Maybe one night a week it's fine, or 2 nights a week. And I'm not the one that's saying what is and isn't fine. Only you as an individual can figure that
Right.
out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What level or what amount of time with this activity are you comfortable,
Right.
spending?
Right.
But an hour a day is 365 hours a year.
Right.
I just
A lot can happen in that time.
right, and I don't want to be 80 years old sitting on a rocking chair looking back and being like, I can't believe that over the last 40 years I've spent, you know, 365 hours times 40 years looking at somebody's posts on Instagram. Like that's
So
just
true.
when I zoom out like that, like that's just not how I want to spend my life.
Right. I always say I want it when it's finally my time to go, no matter what age I am, I just want to look back and go, well, that was fun. Like tried some things, some things worked, some things didn't. It was interesting. And I gave it a good run, like that's my goal. Well, Ryan, this has been just so much fun talking to you. We have so many synergies that it's not even funny. And I can't wait to get through your whole book. So thank you so much for this signed copy. I'm very excited about it. Where can my listeners find you?
So we mentioned the podcast. Move the Chains is the podcast. Hopefully, we get you on as a guest as well. We can talk about more of these synergies. I'd love to hear your side of some of this stuff too. Um, RyanMunsey.com is my website, and the book is available either there or you can get it on Amazon. If you prefer Audible, I will read it to you on Audible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. It's been such a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on, Erin.